Hi and welcome. So today I'm going to share with you a few very inspirational stories that will get you thinking, okay? And the first one is the elephant rope. So there was a gentleman that was walking for an elephant camp, and he spotted that the elephants were not being kept in cages or held by the use of chains. So all that was holding them back from escaping the camp was a very small piece of rope tied to one of their legs. And as the man gazed upon the elephants, he was completely confused as to why the elephants didn't just use their strength to break the rope and escape the camp. So they could easily have done so, but instead they didn't try to at all. So curious and wanting to know the answer, he asked a trainer nearby why the elephants were just standing there and never tried to escape. And the trainer replied, when they were very young and much smaller to use the same size rope to tie them, and at that age it's enough to hold them, right? So as they grow up, they are conditioned to believe that they cannot break easily, they cannot break free, they cannot break away. So they believe the rope can still hold them, so they never try to break free. Okay, and the only reason that the elephants were not breaking free and escaping from their camp was that over time they adopted the belief that it just wasn't possible. So the moral of this story is there are different moral, in fact. It's like no matter how much the world tries to hold you back, always continue with the belief that what you want to achieve is possible. Believing you can become successful is the most important step in actually achieving it. And that was very inspirational for me. And then there was another one, controlling your temper. So there once was a little kid, a little boy who had a very bad temper. So his father decided to hand him a bag of nails and said that every time the boy lost his temper, he had to hammer a nail into the fence. So on the first day, the boy hammered 37 nails into that fence. So the boy gradually began to control his temper over the next few weeks, and the number of nails he was hammering into the fence slowly decreased, and he discovered it was easier to control his temper than to hammer those nails into the fence. And finally the day came when the boy didn't lose his temper at all, and he told his father the news, and the father suggested that the boy should now pull out a nail every day that he kept his temper under control. So the days passed, and the young boy was finally able to tell his father that all the nails were gone. So the father took his son by the hand and led him to the fence, and he said to his son, "You have done well, my son. But look at the holes in the fence. The fence will never be the same. When you say things in anger, they leave a scar just like this one. You can put a knife in a man and draw it out. It won't matter how many times you say, 'I'm sorry,' the wound is still there." So the moral of the story goes, control your anger and don't say things to people in the heat of the moment that you may later regret. Because some things in life you're unable to take back. It's like that arrow. Once you release it, it's gone. So instead of reacting, try to respond. Try to respond to things. Okay? And it's a good story that helps you to think. And there's another one. There was a small town, a small business owner owned a lot of money to a loan shark, someone who charges extremely high rates of interest, typically under illegal conditions. And the latter was he was a very old and mean and unattractive looking guy that just so happened to fancy the business owner's daughter. So he decided to offer the businessman a deal that would completely wipe out the debt he owed him. So how the catch was that he would only wipe the debt if he could marry the businessman's daughter. And needless to say, this proposal was met with a look of disgust. And the loan shark said that he would place 2 pebbles into a bag, one white and one black. So the daughter would then have to reach into the bag and pick out a pebble. If this pebble was black, the debt would be wiped, but the loan shark would then marry her. If it was white, the debt would also be wiped, but the daughter wouldn't have to marry the loan shark. Okay, so standing on a pebble strewn path in the businessman's garden, the loan shark bent over and picked up 2 pebbles. While he was picking them up, the daughter noticed that he'd pick up 2 black pebbles and place them both into the bag. So he then asked the daughter to reach into the bag and pick one. And the daughter naturally had 3 choices as to what she could have done. So refuse to pick a pebble from the bag, or take both pebbles out of the bag and expose the loan shark for cheating. And then there was pick a pebble from the bag fully well knowing it was black and sacrifice herself for her father's freedom. So she drew out a pebble from the bag, and before looking at it, accidentally dropped it into the midst of the other pebbles. And she said to the loan shark, "Oh, how clumsy of me. Never mind. If you look into the bag for the one that is left, you'll be able to tell which pebble I picked." So the pebble left in the bag is obviously black. And seeing as the loan shark didn't want to be exposed, he had to play along as if the pebble the daughter dropped was white and clear her father's debt. So the moral of the story, it's always possible to overcome a tough situation throughout the box thinking and not to give in to the only options you think you have to pick from. Okay, and there's another one, a very good one. That was the group of frogs. So as a group of frogs was traveling through the woods, 2 of them fell into a deep pit. And when the other frogs crowded around this pit and saw how deep it was, they told the 2 frogs that there was no hope left for them. However, the two frogs decided to ignore what the others were saying, and they proceeded to try and jump out of the pit. Now, despite their efforts, the group of frogs at the top of the pit was still saying that they should just give up, that they would never make it out. Now, eventually, one of the frogs took heed to what the others were saying, and he gave up, falling down to his death. And the other frog continued to jump as hard as he could. Again, the crowd of frogs yelled at him to stop the pain and just die. So he jumped even harder and finally made it out. When he got out, the other frogs said, "Did you not hear us?" So what do you think has happened? The frog explained to them that he was deaf. He thought they were encouraging him the entire time. So the moral of the story, people's words can have a big effect on others' lives. Think about what you say before it comes out of your mouth. It might just be the difference between life and death. And I'm just thinking about the other one. Yes, there was a king who had a big stone, and it's like a big rock placed on a roadway, and he placed that rock just there in the roadway, and he then hid himself, and he watched to see if anyone would move the rock out of the way. Some of the king's wealthiest merchants and courtiers came by and simply walked around it. And many people loudly blamed the king for not keeping the roads clear. But none of them did anything about getting the stone out of the way. And a farmer then came along carrying a load of vegetables, and upon approaching the stone, the farmer laid down the burden of his burden and then tried to push the stone out of the road. So after much pushing and straining, he finally succeeded. And after the farmer went back to pick up his vegetables, he noticed a purse lying in the road where the stone had been. And the purse contained many gold coins and a note from the king explaining that the gold was for the person who removed this boulder, this stone from the roadway. So the moral of the story, every obstacles we come across in life gives us an opportunity to improve our circumstance, all our circumstances. And whilst the lazy complain, the others are creating opportunities for their kind hearts, for their generosity and willingness to get things done. And then there was this one I really like, the butterfly. A man found a cocoon of a butterfly. So one day a small opening appeared, and he sat and watched the butterfly for several hours as it struggled to force its body through that little hole until it suddenly stopped making any progress and looked like it was stuck. So the man decided to help the butterfly. So he took a pair of scissors and snipped off the remaining bit of the cocoon, and the butterfly then emerged easily although it had a swollen body and small, like shriveled wings. So the man didn't think anything of it and sat there waiting for the wings to enlarge, to support the butterfly. But that didn't happen. The butterfly spent the rest of its life unable to fly, crawling around and with tiny wings and a swollen body. And despite the kind heart of the man, he didn't understand that the this restricting cocoon and the struggle needed by the butterfly to get itself through the small opening were God's way of forcing fluid from the body of the butterfly into its wings, so to prepare itself for flying once it was out of the cocoon. So the moral of this story is our struggles in life develop our strength. Without obstacles, without challenges, without struggles, we never grow and never get stronger. And it's important for us to tackle challenges on our own and not be relying on help from others. Okay, and there's another one. There was a blind girl who hated herself purely for the fact she was blind. And the only person she didn't hate was her loving boyfriend. And he was always there for her. She said that if she could see the world, she would marry him. And one day someone donated a pair of eyes in her to that girl. And now she could see everything, including her boyfriend. And her boyfriend asked her, now that you can see the world, will you marry me? And the girl was shocked when she saw that her boyfriend was blind too and refused to marry him. Her boyfriend walked away in tears and later wrote a letter to her saying, just take care of my eyes, dear. So the moral of the story: when our circumstances change, so does our mind. Some people may not be able to see the way things were before and might not be able to appreciate them. And there are many things to take away from this story, not just one. This is one of the inspirational stories that left me speechless. And I remember one loss, a puppy. There was a shop owner who placed a sign above his door that said "puppies for sale." And signs like this always have a way of attracting young children. And to no surprise, a boy saw the sign and approached the owner. So the boy said, "How much are you going to sell the puppies for?" he asked. The store owner replied, "Anywhere from $30 to $50. So the little boy pulled out some change from his pocket, and "I have $2.37, he said. "Can I please look at them?" So the shop owner smiled and whistled. Now out of the kennel came a lady who ran down the aisle of his shop, followed by 5 teeny tiny balls of fur. And one puppy was lagging considerably behind. And immediately the little boy singled out the lagging, limping puppy and said, "What's wrong with that little dog?" And the shop owner explained that the veterinarian had examined the little puppy and had discovered it didn't have a hip socket, and it would always limp. It would always be lame. The little boy became excited. That is the puppy that I want to buy. And the shop owner said, no, you don't want to buy that little dog. If you really want him, I'll just give him to you. Okay? And the little boy got quite upset. He looked straight into the store owner's eyes, pointing his finger, and said, I don't want you to give him to me. That little dog is worth every bit as much as all the other dogs, and I will pay full price. In fact, I'll give you $2.37 now and 50 cents a month until I have him paid for. So the shop owner counted. You really don't want to buy this little dog. He's never going to be able to run and jump and play with you like the other puppies. And to his surprise, the little boy reached down and rolled up his pant leg to reveal a badly twisted, crippled left leg supported by a big metal brace. And he looked up at the shop owner and softly replied, well, I don't run so well myself. And the little puppy will need someone who understands. So thanks for really listening to these inspirational stories, and some of them really left me speechless for a minute or two, and it really does make us think things that we take for granted. And if you know of any other inspirational short stories that you think should be featured on the list, then let me know in the comments below, and I'll feature them in part 2 later on in the month. And please freely share this with your friends, family, colleagues, networks. So you take good care of yourself. Bye-bye. Thank you.